Hello, welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I am Andrew Musgrove, joined by John Gibson as we look ahead to the visit of Arsenal to St James's Park on Sunday, while also looking back on a fantastic victory for Newcastle United in the Carabao Cup as they beat Bradford City 4-1. Or as always, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Do click the link in the podcast description box to take advantage of an exclusive offer for our listeners and viewers of the Everything is Black and White podcast. Perfect to keep your details nice and safe when you're browsing on public Wi-Fi, whether that be on the train, in a restaurant, cafe. If you've got NordVPN, you can scare away the hackers, support the podcast, and keep yourself secure at the same time. John, welcome back to the podcast. How are you keeping? You well?
Yes, I'm fine, considering I wasn't given a little bit of a jerk last evening. It was nice and smooth, so I'm good.
Yeah, well, me and you both said that this game against Bradford will maybe be a little bit too close for comfort. We backed Newcastle United to get through, but we certainly didn't think it was going to be as easy as it was. I have to say I was expecting a little bit more from Bradford. They got the goal, and in the opening kind of 10, 15 minutes, they did force Ramsdale into two decent enough saves, but for the large part, Newcastle were in total control of that game.
Oh yeah, the class gap showed. It was absolutely huge. It was what it was. A Champions League side against a third tier side, and whether you're on the third tier, top of the pile, etc., you're third tier, and you were a division below the season before. And the class gap, I thought, was absolutely enormous. I mean, it's wrong to say I was disappointed in Bradford because I was indifferent to what to Bradford, if you know what I mean. They were just the opposition. But I mean, they give us more space than there is on the town moor. I mean, and when you've got players of the quality we have, Champions League players, they're going to kill you. And we did kill them. And it was much more comfortable than other sides who have, from lower divisions, who have come here and dug in, put two banks of four and said, right, you've got to beat us. And thought of the defensive part of the game first. Teams like Wimbledon at the beginning of last season's run and Tranmere a couple of years back, they made it tough for us. Bradford City didn't make it tough at all. I think they went out, they're so used, Andrew, at their level, playing front foot and playing attacking football. And, when they come up against a side where you've got to be more compact than that, they didn't change their style. And that style coming onto us with third tier players was absolutely going to be made for us.
Yeah, indeed. And in the view from the opposition episode with Simon Parker from the Telegraph and Argos, he said that's the way Bradford would play. He said, they're not going to change their ethos. They will attack, and if that leaves space in behind, then so be it. But it's all good to die on that hill, but sometimes you have to change your approach if you're serious about getting through to the next round. As it was, we don't particularly care. We'll take it. We want Newcastle to progress. We wanted Newcastle United to have a good night of it. They did. Yes, I probably would like to have seen them tested a little bit more. But that being said, 4 goals, fantastic. And I think for certain individuals, John, it was a huge night, and they proved themselves to a certain degree, albeit against a League One side. 2 goals for Osula, 2 goals for Joe Linton. But what I really liked was, even before the game kicked off, John, you looked at that team sheet and you went, wow, okay. We knew how serious Eddie Howe was taking this competition. He's made it very clear he wants to win every competition Newcastle compete in. But that starting 11 of Ramsdale, Kraft, Chow, Botman, Hall, Miley, Bruno, Jolinton, Gordon, Elanga, and Osula, it surprised me. It really, really did. It surprised us because I did not think he'd go that strong at all.
Yeah, I take the point. The strength was shown by picking the 2 Brazilians, who you could imagine he might have rested one of those. But I think 2 things came into play here, Andrew. First of all, he's going into this as holders, and he would have made some headlines if the holders had been knocked out at the first hurdle by a club 2 divisions beneath them. And secondly, we have a squad now that allows you to do that. He made 7 changes in the last game down at Bournemouth, and he made another 7 changes here. Yet you're looking at the team and saying, wow, that's a strong team. Outside of centre forward, we have a strong squad. And Ramsdale can come in for Pope and do terrific, etc., etc. We've got two wingers in each position, outside right and outside left. We've got cover midfield players. We've got the back four, where you've got Botman and Chow and Hall coming back. We have a squad now outside of centre forward that allows you to do that. And when in the past has Eddie made 7 changes for a match, from a Champions League match, Barca to Bournemouth, and then another 7 changes to this game? And I wouldn't be surprised if he makes as many changes, bearing in mind the side he fielded against Bradford, if he makes as many changes to face Arsenal. He's in a position to do that now, isn't he? And that's what we've been building towards.
Yeah, indeed. And the Arsenal team sheet will be fascinating because I was surprised, as I said, with the starting 11 against Bradford. But then I was also slightly surprised that we had Joe Linton, Bruno, and Malik Thiaw playing 90 minutes against Bradford City, especially when Newcastle were in such a comfortable position. And obviously, at least Joe Linton and Bruno, you would think, will start against Arsenal. And if Fabian Schär's missing through this concussion, then probably Malik Thiaw as well. Was it a case, I guess, especially for Joe Linton and Malik Thiaw, that they need as many minutes as possible to get up to match fitness, and that's potentially why he kept them on the pitch?
Yeah, to a great extent, I think that's true. I'm a little bit surprised in Joe Linton's case because he is carrying a knee and he's carried it for some time now. He plays with it bandaged, and you think we're trying to get the best out of him. We're going to need him there for most of the time. Could we have brought him off? Yes, we could. We could have given a further rest to Bruno, but I think Bruno was loving it so much. And what a game he had, by the way. Now, there might have been a couple of guys got 2 goals apiece. But I mean, the ball he put in for Osula's first goal was sumptuous. And he was really enjoying himself, wasn't he? He was wanting to stamp his authority on the game. And I think when he gave up his shirt at the end of the game, that's as close as opponent got to him when they took the shirt off him as they were leaving the pitch. And he was terrific. But yes, there is a surprise that when it was comfortable, that Eddie didn't look to protect the obvious ones that will play on Sunday. I mean, we would both be staggered if the midfield wasn't Bruno, Tonali and Joe Linton against Arsenal. And therefore, it was a bit of a surprise that he didn't bring at least Joe Linton off with the knee problem he has. But he'd scored 2 goals. He was loving life there. And perhaps he thought, go on, son, just let it go on, play the game, play it out, etc., etc. But Eddie gets most things right, so we'll not criticise him on that one.
Oh, 100%. And look, we always say on this episode, isn't it, like, you can be fit, but to be match fit, you need minutes. So we can't argue if he indeed he's kept 3 potential starters on Sunday on the pitch for the entire match against Bradford. Just on the topic of squad depth, Eddie, of course, was asked about this post-match, and he said, the lads are very, very aware of it. So everyone in their position will be looking over their shoulder, going, if I don't play well today, there's someone else waiting to take my shirt. And do you know what? I like that message from Eddie Howe. Very diplomatic, but also very stern at the same time.
Well, that's what he's a master of, isn't he? Diplomacy, yet getting over a strong message that we won't be messed around and we'll make the best decision for the club and not necessarily for the individual. And it's the way it should be. And I think he'll have been waiting a long time to be able to utter a sentence like that with some sort of conviction, because there's a lot of truth in that. And that's a good thing. And that's what makes Sunday so fascinating before the kickoff. I mean, it's just how many changes he's going to make, isn't it, on Sunday, because the options are there.
Well, we'll get your team in a moment. Eddie Howe added, you need that strength and depth. It keeps everybody on their toes. I don't think there can be any complacency when you play. A bad game can see you miss football, and no one wants that. So there is the gauntlet laid down to the players. You've got to keep at the very top of your game if you're going to remain in this starting 11. Will Osula, as we said, John, got 2 goals. It was 2 goals in 2 minutes, one for Big Joe and then Osula as well, and then the more chances as the first half went on. A couple of good saves, a couple of shots fired into the Leazer's end, and Newcastle United really kind of smelt blood without having to get out of first gear in many ways. But on Osula, big night for him. Everyone expected him to start. Yes, it's against the League One side, but look, he was impressive. He did what he was brought on to do. That was to score goals. Now he just has to build on it when he gets his next opportunity.
Yes, and he's got to build on it against better opposition. I mean, if and this is meant as a backhanded compliment to him, if you're a Premier League player, which he is, he's at a Premier League club, you should play well against third tier opposition, and he did. The first goal was particularly excellent. His first goal, a wonderful ball from Bruno, but a first time finish low into the corner, a finisher's finish, if you like. And that pleased me. There was a tap in, but you've got to be there for tap ins, and we haven't been there for tap ins in the past. The guy in front of him or to cut it out didn't do that. Doesn't matter. What the mistakes they make doesn't matter. It's the things we do right, and that will have helped him a lot. And we need that because at the moment he's the backup. He will get on against Arsenal late in the game. Uh, I think without a shadow of doubt. So we need him to be firing because he needs to be doing the job that he's paid to do while we wait for Wisa to come back. So that was good. Um, and it was good to see Joe Linton, who came to us as a centre forward, by the way, finishing inside the penalty area. That was good to see. If there's a bit of negativity, I felt that other senior players, like our wide players, just don't look as if they can buy a goal. Gordon, Elanga, and Bonds. Bonds, who regularly scored, doesn't get off the shots now. And Anthony, who plays exceptionally well and is a wonderful winger, Mr. Hatful against Bradford. Mr. Hatful, how he didn't score, we don't know. And when you get into the big games, like Barca was, like Arsenal's going to be on Sunday, you take your opportunity when it comes along because when will the next one come along? So we need Gordon. Elanga as well didn't look really like he could finish. We know all about his pace and the trouble he can make, but it would be nice. I know Gordon got that tap in against Barca, but he's missing a few chances, and he does that. But we want him to start hitting him, and I would like to see more finishing power from the two wings going into the Arsenal game.
I think as Gordon gets more games, obviously he's missed a few through suspension, but he obviously will play, we think, against Arsenal. I think fingers crossed that will all come together, and it needs to, as you said, because only David Brooks has had more shots without scoring than Anthony Gordon in the Premier League this season. Brooks has had 11 and Gordon has had 10. So obviously that needs to change for Gordon going forward, but he will be back out on that left, his favoured position, and that will hopefully see him come to his best. On Osula, as we said, 2 goals, 15 out of 16 passes completed, 1 key pass, 5 out of 11 duels won. But what I found really interesting was when Voldemade came onto the pitch, John, and he again had a really good cameo. I felt some of the touches that he was bringing into the game were superb, and we really got a kind of another viewing of probably where he's at his best. Back to goal, dropping a little bit deep, one touch, and then bringing others into play, and then him running off. But Osula's kind of role in helping Voldemade do that, I felt was quite interesting, because there were times when Osula went out onto the right, and then there were other times when he was playing a little bit closer to Voldemade in the centre. And I said last week that actually maybe going forward until Whistler gets back, that's potentially something that Eddie Howe has to consider. Does he potentially play Osula up top with Voldemade, so Voldemade can do what he does best, at least what it looks like in the early games we've seen him, and that is drop a little bit deeper and bring others into play, because I think that's how we get the best out of him. He needs someone either close to him, or indeed if it is whoever's on the right, making sure that when he drops deep, that right winger is running into the centre to kind of continue Newcastle's attack and play.
I mean, the bottom line is that Woltemade is not a centre forward, and we're asking him to play at centre forward. He is not a centre forward. When you see centre forwards that finish, whether that's Isaac, whether it's Supermac, whether it's Shearer, whether it's any, he doesn't look a finisher, a natural finisher. Where he looks at his best is back the goal, bringing people in, intelligence, nice feet, tricks. Not showboat tricks, just genuine flicks, and he's clever. He's clever at that. But he doesn't look a finisher, does he? He doesn't. He doesn't whip off a lot of shots and say, "Oh, the goalkeeper's made a great save there, and the goalkeeper's done that." And we're cutting him a lot of slack, and quite rightly so, because he's a talented boy. We're desperate for him to come good for his sake, because he's such a nice lad, for Eddie's sake, for the team's sake, for the fans' sake, for ours, for everybody's sake. We're aching for him to come good. But he's doing a role that doesn't suit him. Not through Newcastle United's fault, because they haven't got Wisa, and that role would have suited Wisa. But to me, he looks a little bit like when Joe Linton first come and played centre forward. He wasn't a centre forward. At that stage, he wasn't a midfield player. He was a left. He played coming in from the left, a bit like Bonds plays. That's what Joe Linton's role was in Germany, and he didn't look a centre forward. If he looked it stripped, but he didn't look it in play. And I think this guy's a 10. He's not a 9, but we're asking him to be a 9. And once you're a 9 at Newcastle, and I know the shirt isn't on his back, but once you're a 9 at Newcastle, you're supposed to be a finisher. He hasn't looked to be a finisher. For the club's record by, I've got to be truthful, and you will tell me I'm harsh, etc., but I'm looking for a bit more. I'm looking for a bit more than we've seen so far. Yes, he's got clever feet. Yes, he's intelligent, etc., But we're willing him to be what we want him to be, aren't we? We're willing it more than seeing it. Now, Ekitike, you look at him that's gone to Liverpool, you say you can't hit the ground running, and you can't. The guy that's the centre forward that's coming up here with Arsenal is still finding his feet. Since they turned us down to go to Manchester United, is still finding his feet. It is difficult, but good players can make the transition quickly. And Ekitike, he looks a Newcastle United player, if ever I've seen one. Intelligent on the ball, smooth as silk, lethal finishing when given the opportunity. And really, we're asking Nick to do the job that doesn't come natural to him. He doesn't want to bury into the box and finish with a lashing shot into the top corner. He does his best work on the periphery of things. He would slide centre forwards in more than him being the centre forward. And we're filling in time at the moment until we get Wisa, because you can imagine Wisa and him going together excellently. The role you were talking about, Osula perhaps doing with Woltemade, which is getting close to him and all that. Just think if that was Wisa doing it with him, who's an established Premier League forward. Now we would be cooking, but we're still going into the match against Arsenal, despite scoring 4 against third tier side, saying the goals are going to be precious and they're going to be few and far between in where they're going to come from. And I think it's a little bit unfair on Woltemade, and I'm not criticising him. I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm saying he's a real footballer, a proper footballer, but we're asking him to do what he can't do. I remember donkeys years ago, probably before your time, Andrew, I had John Doyle Thomason at Newcastle. And because we sold Ferdinand, and because we then got Shearer bad injury in a pre-season game, John Doyle Thomason was made to play centre forward and looked the biggest joke you could ever wish to see, because he was a 10. He played deeper and naturally, and we stuck him up there and say play as a centre forward, and he looked so average it was untrue. When he left us, look at the career he had. If you don't know it because of age, look it up in the record books. Look at the careers he had abroad and in Europe. He was a sensation, but he wasn't playing the game that he was forced to play at Newcastle. And sometimes it's unfair on people, and I think it's a little bit unfair on Nick. I think he'll get through and he'll do a job for us, but I'm looking for a bit more. I never think of him. He scored a terrific header on his debut, but I never think of him lashing the ball from the edge of the box with either foot into the top corner. There's no signs of that yet. He isn't that type of player, I suggest, from what we've seen so far. Of course, he'll get better. And when the cavalry arrives, with people like we say, he'll get even better again. It's not a criticism. And the fee on his head is not his fault, poor soul, that it's as big as 69, because the minute you say it's a club record fee, that heaps pressure on you straight away, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And like you, I think we've seen enough to be optimistic about his future here at Newcastle United. And I was just, although it was against Bradford, but I said the same after the Barcelona game. Some of the touches that he was delivering were absolutely superb. And yes, very
But did he
excited.
look like scoring to you? Did he look like scoring? In either of those games, did he look like scoring?
No, and that's the point that I was making, is that it might not be the worst idea in the world to actually potentially start Osula as the out and out striker with Voldemort playing just behind him, so Voldemort can do what he does best. That decision will probably be a little bit easier when Whistler does indeed return, because then as you said, you've got an experienced striker ready to fill that role. But look, this is a positive dilemma, I guess, in many ways for Eddie Howe to have when everyone is fit and firing. Lewis Miley, John, was another young man who had a big evening against Bradford City, someone that we said had to take his opportunity, and he did. 101 passes completed out of 110 attempted passes, 92% accuracy, so that left him top of the ranking. 3 key passes, 1 big chance created, 6 out of 9 duels won, the majority in the air. And again, we caveat it by saying League One side, but that was I felt, other than the goal Bradford scored because it came from
I
Miley.
was going to say the one pass out of all those passes that wasn't as successful was terrible. I mean, under no pressure at all, stick it straight to one of their guys on the edge of the box was awful. But having said that, Lewis is a talent, and he did himself no harm. He is our best player to play in Tonali's role when Tonali's not there, without a shadow of a doubt. You can't ask Willock to play that. It's not Ramsey's idea of a midfield operator when he is available, etc., etc. He is by far the best to stand in for Tonali, although nobody's as good as Tonali in that position, of course not. But Lewis has got a terrific future. It was unfortunate the ball he gave away because it was terrible under absolutely no pressure. But yes, it was a big step forward for the boy, and he can play that role very well because he's got good vision, and he doesn't panic when he's on the ball.
Yeah, I thought it was one of many kind of man of the match performances from that you could choose from Newcastle's starting 11. Howe on Lewis Miley said, Louis was excellent. He really helped us in the first half. Some lovely depth touches and short passes into midfield, using Joelinton and Bruno as a springboard to control the midfield. He's developing all the time, and I'm really pleased with him. I think just for Lewis himself, he obviously got a bit of stick after the Bournemouth game, which was unjustified. I think just for him and for Osula as well, and you could even throw Joelinton into the mix as well. Individually having performances like they did last night against Bradford, like you say, will do them absolutely no harm, and it just gives them a really big confidence boost, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It does. I've got to say again what I said before. We've got more space than there is on the town moor. I mean, they didn't come with a game plan. I mean, you can't play that way against a Champions League side. But you can only play the side in front of you. It does give you confidence, and you've still got to have the quality to look a good player in those situations. And of course, loads of people from Bruno up and down and sideways did look good players. There wasn't a bad performance. Of course, there wasn't a bad performance. So all in all, it was a good night. And thank goodness we got goals, because those 2 goals in a couple of minutes, that really set us up from then on. It was good night, and it was go out and show your talent to everybody. and we did do that. So it was a good night's exercise, but it was different against Barca, it was different against Bournemouth, and it'll certainly be different against Arsenal on Sunday.
It certainly will. And before we talk about Arsenal, obviously the draw has been made for the fourth round. Another home tie. Premier League opposition this time around. Tottenham Hotspur. I'm not fearing that. Newcastle United are at home. They got to the final last season by beating Premier League opposition for the most part of the journey. Tottenham going through a bit of a transition period under Thomas Frank. This is obviously you would have liked to have maybe played a Wrexham potentially or a Cardiff. Of course you would have done. But I tell you what, I'm sitting here and I'm not fearing that tie at all. I think Spurs come to St James's Park and let's see what you can do, because I'm backing Newcastle to get through.
Well, of course. I mean, we're at home, and that was the most important of all. Last season, I mean, we beat Liverpool in the final, Arsenal home and away in the semi-final. We beat Brentford, we beat Chelsea, we beat some quality sides. By Jove, didn't we win the cup the hard way? And yes, it would have been. I mean, this is a far better tie than Liverpool, Arsenal, or Man City away, which was a possibility. This is it's the glamour tie of the round. You look at all the draw in the first match. The television companies will be wanting to pick out as their number one pick will be our match. But I would fully expect us. Yes, they're a bit of a different proposition under Frank than they were under Big Ange last season. The European trophy apart, they were horrendous in the league and domestically. They're a bit different now, but it's still a good draw, and I would expect Newcastle to win as well. Yes, absolutely.
Wrexham Cardiff might be a bit tasty though as well. I'm sure the TV.
That's a different ball game. The two Welsh sides playing each other will be tasty, but the two if big hitters were going to draw each other, Arsenal didn't, Liverpool didn't, Man City did, we and Spurs did. So the big games, the two Premier League giants, although the other game is very tasty. It's a bit of a Welsh rabbit, isn't it?
Did you not fancy Alexander Isak coming back? Liverpool being drawn out of the hat? That would have been interesting, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be interesting, but it would not make, because there'd be so much emotion in it, and I would be wanting so much for Big Dan Burn to gently wrap himself in a bear hug, that, it wouldn't have been enjoyable to a certain extent, and it would have only been enjoyable if we knocked them out. If that didn't them knocking us out, it would have been the match. Can you imagine the build up to something like that, though, Andrew? Every day we would be battered over the head about Isak and strikes and what he did last season and what he did to get away and scoring in the final. And in a way, I can do without that. No, I'll settle for getting him in the final, and we do Liverpool again. Only this time Isak's on the losing side instead of being on the winning side, which he was last season.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to that game against Tottenham. Obviously, Arsenal, their North London rivals, are next up on Sunday to St James's Park, a fixture that we've really come to enjoy in recent years, John, because Arsenal just can't seem to beat Newcastle, which is lovely. Newcastle have won each of the last 3 home games against Arsenal. It is a fixture in which Mikel Arteta seems to be unable to handle. He seems to get rattled rather easily when he comes to St James's Park. So we'll be hoping for more of that. They beat Port Vale 2-0 away from home in the League Cup last night as well. Not as strong as a starting 11 as Newcastle put out, but still some big names did start. You had Eze starting, Saka coming back from injury, Martinelli as well started. And there was a couple of other big names in the starting 11. I mean, what are we expecting, John, from Arsenal?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, the reason I had big names in the side is, like us, they've got a real strength and depth side. I mean, it's arguably the best squad in the Premier League. I'm talking about the squad when you look at the bench, not the team on the field. They've probably got the best squad in the Premier League, which is why there's pressure on Arteta to win something this season, because he's always been the bridesmaid, never the bride. 3 successive runners-up finishes. And he's got to convert that now. And all of a sudden, he's got enough talent to convert it. What everybody's saying, outsiders, is that has he got the attitude to convert it? Because he's one of these guys that he wants to make certain he doesn't lose before he makes certain he's going to win. And that caution can, at times, produce the wrong result. For example, I mean, the last game at home to Man City, they only got a draw with an injury time equaliser. And they come up here, it's very early in the season, but they're 5 points behind Liverpool. They cannot afford to get that gap to get any larger. In a way, they've almost got to win at Newcastle, because they've got to claw back this situation. Now, what I'm going to find intriguing is how Arteta sends out his side to play. Because bearing in mind, I mean, we had them twice up here last season, and we beat them both times. Once in the league and once in the League Cup up here. And he doesn't like coming up here, and he can't handle that too much. Will he have a bit more of a go? Will he take his players off the leash? Because there is a saying that he's got the players, but he restricts them. Do this, drop in. He's a belt and braces manager. Does he restrict them too much to make certain they don't lose, instead of saying, let's go out front? Whereas Eddie is a front foot manager, Kevin Keegan was a front foot manager, Pep all his career now might be subtly different, front foot. Klopp and the current manager at Liverpool, is he a bit too cautious? We're going to find out in the way that he attacks us. Man for man, they've got some super players, absolutely awesome. And their squad, I mean, you can argue that other teams might have a better starting 11, but the depth of their squad is quite huge. Is it utilised correctly? Will it be? So his team selection is going to be interesting up here, but more so is tactically what's he going to
do. Indeed, and that leads itself into what Newcastle United are going to do as well. As you said there, Liverpool 5 points ahead of Arsenal, who lies second with 10 points. They've won 3, drawn 1, lost 1, scored 10, and conceded only 2. So it is going to be a huge test for Newcastle United. But as we said, they've done well against Arsenal in recent years. We're at home, and for the large part as well, I've got most of the players in the squad and fit and raring to go, other than Ramsey and Wissa. I mean, the starting 11 is going to be fascinating on Sunday from point of view. I mean, do they go 5 at the back, which makes an interesting prospect? Do they go with the 4 at the back and 3 across the middle? I mean, first off, John, formation-wise, what are you picking?
Well, I mean, it's anybody's guess, isn't it? He's made 7 changes the last 2 games. I mean, the only certainty there is, and it's very little, is that Pope will play, but Pope will come back, Byrne will come back, Tonali will come back, and Woltemade will come back into the starting 11. But I mean, that's obvious. That's obvious, and that will happen. But outside of that, whether he goes 3 centre-halves or whether he goes flat back 4, it is fascinating. Does he go Trips in Livramento again? I'd accept it rather than Hall for this particular game. He's got enough centre-halves to go 3 at the back. And he might well consider an opposition do that. I presume if you do, you leave a winger out, don't you? Because you'll play your 3 across the middle. I think he'll play Bruno, Tonali and Joe Linton for certain. And Woltemade will start upstairs. So does he then just play Gordon and sacrifice his outside right and play 5 at the back? That's a great possibility. And as I say, he's got enough centre-halves to do that.
I think he might play 5 at the back with Trippier at right back, Thiago, Bottom and Byrne as the 3 centre-backs, and then Livramento at left back, Tonali, Bruno. Like you say, does Joelinton stay in that middle 3, or does Joelinton potentially get deployed out onto the left with Gordon switching out onto the right? Might be an option, so you still have that kind of attacking element down the flanks to feed Woltemade.
But Yeah, if you've got five, you've got to sacrifice a player somewhere, whether it's one of your three in midfield or one of your wingers.
Yeah. So, but you would drop out. Just doing my numbers here. You would drop out. Uh, yeah. So you would drop out Alanga potentially, wouldn't you? And
Yes,
then
you would drop out Elanga because I don't think he'll drop. He's not going to drop Joe Linton. It's
no.
whether he plays his normal middle three or plays wide left, and I think he'll play his normal middle three because you will want to be solid in that middle part of the pitch. You don't want to sacrifice Akers to Arsenal in there. So I think he'll go with the three big hitters in there, the three that dominated Wembley when we beat Liverpool to get our trophy. I think he'll go with the three in there and sacrifice a winger. He'll play Gordon and Voldemort up front and sacrifice the outside right if he plays five at the back.
I've asked our listeners and viewers to get in touch with their starting 11. So I'll read out their starting 11, John, and I'll come back for your starting 11, so what you would do. But this is the response from some of our viewers and listeners. Phil says, I would play Pope, Tino, Chiao, Botman, Hall, Bruno, Tonali, Joe Linton, Alanga, and Voltemade and Gordon. So 4 across the back, 3 across the middle, 2 wingers, and the man up front. But he says, I think Howe will pick Trippier, Cher, Byrne, and Murphy, though. Obviously happy to go with whoever Eddie Howe picks, as he clearly knows a lot more than me. But of course, there is still a risk that Cher misses out due to that concussion he suffered against Barcelona. Scott says, I'd pick Pope, Trippier, Botman, Byrne, and Livramento, Bruno, Tonali, Joe Linton, Murphy, Voldemort, and Gordon. He says, personally, I would like to see Hall and Alanga start at the expense of Trippier and Murphy. But obviously, he thinks Eddie Howe won't do that. Another team here, Pope, Livramento, Chiao, Byrne, Lewis Hall, Bruno, Tonali, Joe Linton, Murphy, Voldemort, and Alanga on the left. So there's a bit of a wild team. No Gordon in that one. Isaac says Howe will definitely play with 5 defenders. He reckons it'll be Trippier, Botman, Chiao, Byrne, and one of Hall and Tino with Alanga, Bruno, Tonali, and Gordon across the midfield, and Voldemort up front. And Johnny says he will go with Pope, Livramento at right back, Chow at centre back, Botman at centre back, Hall at left back, Tonali, Bruno, and Joe Linton, the midfield 3 with Alanga on the right, Gordon on the left, and Voldemort up top. And James says Trippier, Chow, Botman, Tino, Sandro, Tonali, Joe Linton, Bruno, Alanga, Voldemort, and Gordon. So it's split. Some saying 5 at the back, some saying that usual formation that we see. John, if you were picking the team sheet, what would you be doing?
I would go Pope. I would go Trips, Shaw, unless all of a sudden Shaw's up and floating and ready. But Chow, Botman, Byrne, Livramento left back. Our usual 3 stallions in the middle of the park, and Voldemort and Gordon up front, sacrificing the right winger to play 5 at the back.
There we go. Well, let us know in the comments your starting 11. Obviously, as John always says, it's hiding to nothing really, because you just never know what Eddie Howe is going to do.
Oh, but not at all. Not at all.
It's the balance, isn't it? And what we saw, I think, with Barcelona and Bournemouth is that Eddie Howe thinking beyond the next game. You know, he and I think we might see that as well. Obviously, they go to Belgium next week, don't they? So, do we think that'll play any kind of role in Eddie Howe's side? One eye on the Champions League potentially.
Well, this will be a new Eddie, because in the past he's had one eye on the game in front of him and ignored that and said we'll look at that game when it comes along. I think if you're bringing somebody back from an injury, you can have one eye and think Sunday's a bit early, we'll bring him back at Union, etc., that way. But you know, every game's so important, Andrew. If you take your eye off Arsenal to concentrate on Union and you get beat by Arsenal, where does that leave you in the league? You know, so you can't afford to. You've got to pick your best side to beat Arsenal, and then look at the situation again to play Union.
Yeah, indeed. And we always say on this podcast the word momentum. Newcastle United hopefully starting to pick that up a little bit. Obviously, they would have been pleased with elements of the performance against Barcelona, even though they lost. Point in the end against Bournemouth, not the worst result. Win against Bradford, comfortable win. The momentum is slowly but surely starting to build. Is there enough momentum to get a victory against Arsenal?
Yes, I think there is. I think there is. And you're obviously going to ask me what the result's going to be again at Arsenal. And for me, I think it'll be tight. I think it'll be nervy because it's tight, i.e., it can go one way or the other, one mistake or one piece of thunderous invention in the match is won or the match is lost. Uh, and I think it'll be a single goal win to us. I think we'll win by one goal and probably 1-0 rather than 2-1. I don't think this will be a high flying goal scoring game. I don't think we'll win 4-3 against Arsenal. They don't concede and can they score that many? I think it'll be tough and it'll be close and it'll be edgy, but I can't see us winning by a single goal. And that would be a massive boost for us because we've closed the door on away Premier League games. At home, we've lost twice, but against absolute cream when we lost to Liverpool with 10 men and then to Barcelona. We want to avoid that being a hat trick of losing against top clubs. And I think we can do that. And the recent record tells us we can do that. We beat Arsenal 3 times last season, scored 5 goals and let in none to beat them. We beat them 1-0 up here, 2-0 down there and 2-0 up here in the League Cup semi. But, the 1-0 scoreline and then we lost 1-0. Tight games. The 2-0s, they were exceptional and we were exceptional in the semi-final. But it holds a 1-0 feel about it, this game. And I can see it being 1-0 again in our favour.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Newcastle United defensively because they've only conceded 3 goals this season. Arsenal, obviously, I said earlier, only conceded 2. So it could be a game in which it's a little bit boring potentially for the neutral because defensively they're so good. It's just the lack of goals up top for Newcastle, which is a little bit of a concern. And I think it'll click. I think it will come. Whether it comes on Sunday is another matter because it's like one element of Newcastle can't score goals, and then it's the other element of Arsenal are quite good at not conceding goals. So it's that. Also, I think Newcastle United, it's not been spoken about too much, but they've won just 1 of the last 7 Premier League games. So you mentioned earlier, John, that in many ways Arsenal have to win this game because they're already 5 points behind Liverpool. But we can't go to 1 win in 8 Premier League games, can we? That is a record that is slowly starting to creep up, and I'm sure Eddie's aware of it. And obviously, look, they've played well in many of these games and just not been able to convert the chances. But nonetheless, the stats say 1 win in 7. We need to get to see that change, and hopefully starting on Sunday.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, in fact, both sides have to win. They're 5 points behind. They've got to win. I mean, a draw, we would say, well, that's a decent result. It's Arsenal, etc. It's not a good result for them because if Liverpool win again, then they stretch the situation. A draw isn't the end of the world for us, but it's still making it X number of games with only 1 victory for us. So, and I know that we've got a real chance against Big Ange in the next game in the league when Forest come up here, because Big Ange, it's confetti in a strong wind, isn't it? You've always got a chance because of the way he plays. But we can't keep wanting to win the next game. We've got to start winning this game. And the only win we've had is 1-0 against Wolves. So that's got to change and got to change rapidly. And a victory against the side of the calibre of Arsenal would be a huge statement of intent and would be a huge confidence lifter to go in and get a result at Union and then beat Forest. So, it is a massive, massive game this for both sides.
It certainly is. And like you said, Forest, the next league game after this one, it's the whole hope of making Newcastle that fortress once again, isn't it? So it doesn't matter who the opponents are. Whoever comes, you want to see Newcastle United win at St James's Park, because when you're at home, that's where you're going to pick up the majority of your points. So fingers crossed they manage to do it against Arsenal. My prediction, I mean, my heart says a win for Newcastle, because I genuinely do think that Arteta just cannot handle coming here. He gets so rattled, whether it be by the fans or the referee or the ball's different or Jason Tyndall, whatever it is, he gets proper annoyed. And I think he will do again on Sunday. I think, the fans will definitely be on his back and trying to give Newcastle that little bit of advantage by winding up Arteta. But they're a good side. They are in reasonably good form, second in the league, like we say. They're a dangerous side. But Newcastle good defensively. If they can get the goals, I'm backing them to win. But that's just the big question for me. So I'll go with my heart. Why not, John? Let's be romantic about it. I'll go with my heart and a win for Newcastle on Sunday, which, like you said, would lead them nicely into that trip to Belgium on Wednesday in the Champions League. John, thank you as always. Me and John will be back for Tuesday, hopefully, all being well, because we will preview that Champions League clash. We'll have a little bit of a natter as well, fingers crossed, about a victory for Newcastle against Arsenal, if all goes well on Sunday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you guys very soon.